Hello, this is George Hutton, and you're listening to the Mind Persuasion Podcast. Today we continue our study of Tung Fu, the art of interconversational reframe. Today we start with Chapter 13, and for the next several chapters we'll be going over very specific objections and treating each of these objections with all of the different refrains, all of the 18 patterns. Chapter 13, Not Rich equals Unattractive. This is the core objection behind any rejection that involves you not having enough money. Pattern 1, Metaframe. It's not really wealth that is attractive, it's the underlying personality that can create wealth from scratch in any situation. Pattern 2, Change frame size. Wealth is a poor measure of attractiveness because there will always be wealthier people, which means you'll never be satisfied no matter who you choose. Pattern 3, Apply to self A to A. That is a very impoverished way of looking at things. It shows a lack of emotional richness and certainly not a wealth of character. Pattern 4, Apply to self B to B. Only demanding money in order to feel any romantic attraction isn't very seductive. I'd rather find somebody who is deep enough to appreciate the many facets of my character and personality. After all, sitting around in a pile of money would get pretty boring. Pattern 5, Reality Strategy. How do you know? How would you know if it wasn't true? I mean, how would you know if you felt attracted to somebody that was just starting out? Pattern 6, Model of the World. That is an interesting model of the world, especially when you consider that most wealthy people didn't inherit their wealth, which meant they started out just like normal, non-wealthy people. And in The Millionaire Next Door, choosing the right romantic partner is the most common way to build wealth. I guess if everybody decided they could only be attracted to wealthy people, we wouldn't have very many people on planet Earth. Pattern 7, Intent. The only reason you're saying that is you feel you don't have the skills to create wealth yourself, so you need to latch on to somebody who does. The danger with that thinking is whoever decides to go out with you won't have much respect for you since you don't provide much to the relationship. Pattern 8, Redefine A not equal to B. Not being rich isn't unattractive. Not being rich means I'm hungry to create my empire, and building an empire together is the best way to start a relationship. Pattern 9, Redefine B not equal to A. Not being rich isn't unattractive. What is really unattractive is expecting your future relationship partner to do all the earning, which I guess is an okay strategy if you just came here from the 1600s. Pattern 10, Counterexample. So every lady who had wonderful sex with a poor pool boy didn't really have a fantastic orgasm like she thought? Or maybe the pool boy was secretly wealthy and she didn't know it. Pattern 11, Chunk Up. What is wealth anyway? A numerical result of interacting with plenty of people and creating value, but is money the only way to measure value? How did people fall in love way back before money was invented? Pattern 12, Chunk Down. Is there a certain cutoff point below which you don't feel attraction? And then if the guy you aren't attracted to suddenly finds a penny on the street and now he's above your cutoff point and you suddenly find him irresistibly attractive because he just got a few grams of copper? Is it the actual copper you find attractive? Pattern 13, Metaphor. They say that to reach complete self-actualization, one must move beyond wealth and see the deeper meaning of life. I guess you wouldn't find a self-actualized person very attractive. Pattern 14, Another Outcome. It's not really the wealth that creates the attraction, it's the guy who has the wealth and how he decides to use the wealth. Some people are wealthy, but they hate spending money. Some people are wealthy, but they always go broke, which I imagine would be a horrible experience for the spouse and children. It's how the wealth is created and how it is managed that is what is really attractive. Pattern 15, Consequences. If you continue to use wealth as your main indicator of attraction, you'll be chasing men who aren't attracted to women who are attracted to wealth. Guys like that aren't the most loyal, unless, of course, you like the idea of being part of a harem. Pattern 16, Hierarchy of Criteria. I think what you might really be after is a feeling of being taken care of having somebody who knows what you really need and who knows how to provide it. Somebody who not only cares about you, but somebody who knows you inside and out. Somebody who knows all your strengths and weaknesses and will protect you and keep you safe from all harm. Unfortunately, many people today that are wealthy got that way because they are vicious sociopaths who don't really care about anybody other than themselves. Pattern 17. Take it to the threshold. Well, the richest man in the world would be the most attractive, right? And unless you're getting down with Jeff Bezos or Bill Gates, you'll feel like you're an underachiever. So when you're having sex with whomever you end up with, you will be fantasizing about having sex with Bill Gates. I wonder what his wife would think about that. Pattern 18. Reverse presuppositions. Have you ever felt attracted to guys because of their scrappy attitudes and willingness to do anything to pay the rent? Many girls find that kind of thing incredibly sexy. Chapter 14. I have a boyfriend equals I can't date you. This is for any situation where you get the boyfriend objection, any attempted escalation that is met with the boyfriend objection. Pattern 1. Metaframe. What's the difference between a boyfriend, a guy you're dating, and a husband? All the relationships these days seem to be flexible and interchangeable. Pattern 2. Change frame size. Have you decided if you want to marry him, or are you still kind of waiting to see if somebody else might be the one? Pattern 3. Apply to self A to A. Are you in a committed relationship with that idea? I've had a lot of silly beliefs that I was able to break up with that made me feel much better about my options. Pattern 4. Apply to self B to B. How long have you been dating that idea? I've had a lot of fun being polygamous with many ideas at once. It's not for everybody, but it helps to make sense of all the craziness. Pattern 5. Reality strategy. How do you know when a relationship is really over? Most people would agree that a relationship ends long before either party starts to talk about it or take any action because of it. Pattern 6. Model of the world. That's an interesting way of looking at things, of only entering into a new relationship when the last one has officially ended. Not a lot of people do that, and many people have met the love of their life while being in a previous relationship. Pattern 7. Intent. I understand you want to be loyal to your boyfriend, that you value the relationship so much you don't want to ruin it with any bad behavior. Have you planned your wedding yet? By the way, if I had a girlfriend that valued our relationship so much, I wouldn't want to let her out of my sight. Does he realize how much you value him? Pattern 8. Redefine A not equal to B. Having a boyfriend doesn't mean you can't date me. It means you can't date anybody, which means if you met the absolute love of your life in the next 10 minutes, you'd have to turn him down. In fact, every single man on earth right now is off limits to you. Pattern 9. Redefine B not equal to A. Actually, the reason you can't date me isn't because you have a boyfriend. It's because I'm not looking for a girlfriend. In fact, I don't want to date anybody, really. I just thought you might be a cool person to hang out with. Who knows? You might have a cute friend that might convince me to start dating again. Pattern 10. Counterexample. When you met your boyfriend, you were totally single. Most people accept that it's pretty common nowadays to kind of slide into new relationships as the old one is dying. Pattern 11. Chunk up. What is commitment anyway? I mean, way back in the old days when people said till death do us part, they really meant it. But with the divorce rate so high, people having several relationships before getting married, and even polygamy and polyandry making a comeback, what does a relationship really mean anyway? Pattern 12. Chunk down. On a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being getting married tomorrow, how strong would you say your relationship is? Does he know your favorite movie? Does he know what scared you the most when you were a little girl? Does he know your biggest dreams and fantasies for your life? Does he know what you wanted to be when you grew up when you were 10 years old? Pattern 13. Metaphor. Back when life was hard and people really needed to have a strong relationship to survive, people really value their relationships above all else. That's when commitment really meant something. Pattern 14. Another outcome. Well, whether we actually date isn't really the issue. What's important is whether you have a personality that is attractive as your physical appearance. I mean, many girls are pretty these days, but ones with strong personalities and the intellect to leverage them are very few and far between. Pattern 15. Consequences. If you hang on to that belief long enough, your boyfriend will eventually propose to you. What would you say if he called you now and asked you to marry him? Pattern 16, hierarchy of criteria. I think what you're really after is somebody who values relationships as much as you. I mean, if you don't want to date anybody until you give this current relationship enough chance to thrive, you must be one of those rare old-fashioned girls who really value the sanctity of a relationship. That's just the kind of girl I'm hoping to meet, since I also don't like the idea of frivolously dating around. So, you and your boyfriend are each other's first? Pattern 17, take it to the threshold. Then I don't want your number, I want his number, so I can call him and congratulate him on your upcoming nuptials. Kind of sad, though, when you think about the nearly 4 billion men you've already decided aren't for you. I'll hope he lives up to your greatest aspirations, because once you choose a guy, that's it for life. Pattern 18, reverse presuppositions. I was watching this interesting documentary the other night, and a lot of leading psychologists have found that people with open relationships tend to have the strongest relationships because that actually forces them to discuss and set real boundaries instead of just making assumptions that most people do. I'm George Hutton. Thank you for listening to the Mind Persuasion Podcast. I look forward to speaking to you again soon.